day one of trying to get sponsored by Mountain Dew. In this video, we're going to learn all about protein. First thing you need to know about protein is that it's made up of many amino acids, and you need a large amount of these amino acids to carry out various functions in the body. These are classified as two separate types. There's non-essential amino acids, meaning your body can make them from other amino acids in the body. You don't require them to live. And then there's essential amino acids. You need these. Your body cannot get them internally. You have to get them through your diet, and they're required to actually build structural things in the body. Specifically, there are 9 essential amino acids, and a diet rich in calories, carbohydrates, and fats makes sure that the amino acids that you do take in are well utilized for building structural things. Inversely, if your energy intake is fiercely low, your body will start to use these amino acids for energy rather than building blocks. A few specific functions that protein has within the body: it acts as an enzyme, it acts to help regulate hormones, it helps with antibody formation. A form of protein known as collagen helps support your joints and connective tissues. It specifically affects hydrogen and water, affecting acid-base balance in the blood. And the function we know best, it's there for the gains. So what muscle protein synthesis actually is your body taking these proteins and amino acids and actually putting them in the appropriate places and using them to actually start structuring and building, whether that be organs, muscles, etc. Muscle protein synthesis is specifically the incorporation of amino acids into skeletal muscle. This is brought about by resistance training and intaking a large amount of protein. You get a little bit of a synergistic effect if you do both of those together. What determines muscle growth is going to be your rate of muscle protein synthesis subtracted by your rate of muscle protein breakdown. So if you're not lifting weights and or if you're eating an aggressive calorie deficit, sometimes your body will actually break down those proteins as energy. So it's that equation essentially that dictates how much muscle you're going to build. So the higher you get muscle protein synthesis and the lower you get muscle protein breakdown, the more muscle you can grow. Let's look at dosing and timing. If you're trying to grow or maintain muscle, which I think is the goal for most people, I don't think anyone sits down at their kitchen table and thinks, what meal can I put together that will specifically cause me to lose muscle mass? If you do, more power to you. But a good dosage for maintenance or growing of skeletal muscle is around 1.4 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, or a nice freedom unit measurement would be around a gram per pound of body weight. If you're an endurance athlete, you still need to make sure you're keeping around a minimum effective dose of protein so you don't have muscle wasting, but you put much more emphasis on carbohydrate. There's a very small amount of literature that shows some benefit from upwards of 3 grams per kilogram of body weight, though this needs to be replicated and we need a lot more data, and the bulk of the evidence doesn't show this. If you need a very simple heuristic of how much protein you should take in a meal, somewhere between 20 and 40 grams is likely your best bet, though it's not as dogmatic as it once appeared to be. We now have evidence showing that even up to 100 grams in one specific meal, your body can adequately use it and you'll still be stimulating and maxing out muscle protein synthesis. Part of the reason for this is if you were to take in 100 grams of protein, that's a lot of food for your body to digest. So it actually takes quite a bit of time. So you still end up getting that steady drip of amino acids. Within the context of this protein dosage, do know that whole protein sources or complete protein sources are likely more beneficial than incomplete protein sources. Good sources of complete protein are typically found in animal products. If you are not taking in complete protein sources, you likely need somewhere between 700 to 3,000 milligrams of leucine specifically to maximize muscle protein synthesis. You can do this by varying your incomplete protein sources. So you might get some from beans, you might get some from another type of vegetable, etc. Getting into the minutia of protein timing here, it's likely at least a little bit better to spread your protein dosage out throughout most of the day. You don't want to take in all 200 grams of protein at 8 a.m. and then don't eat for the rest of the day. Some amount of spreading is likely good, somewhere between 3 to 5 meals a day for that. And if you want to optimize muscle protein synthesis, taking in some protein and some carbohydrates both 2 hours prior and 2 hours post of your workout is likely going to maximize muscle protein synthesis. Of note, limiting fiber and fat intake in these meals is going to help with speed of digestion and increasing muscle protein synthesis. All right, on to everyone's favorite subsection of protein, supplementation. There's 2 main types of protein sources that I want to talk about here. The first being whey protein, which is a very fast digesting, complete milk protein, very, very beneficial. And the second being casein protein, which is a much slower complete milk protein. Whey protein is nice because it's very convenient and it gets the protein into your system very, very quickly. So you see this oftentimes people taking this either pre or post workout. Bonus points if you add in a little bit of carbohydrate in there. Casein protein, being slow digesting, oftentimes is a little bit more beneficial if you need to fast for a long period of time. A great example of this is if you're going to sleep. So 20 to 40 grams right before bed, if it doesn't upset your tummy, can be an awesome way to get a steady drip of protein throughout the night. A simple recipe that helps out myself and a lot of my clients is going to be overnight oats or instant cereal, depending on how you want to go about it. And this is simply just you take your favorite fat-free, high-protein Greek yogurt, you mix in 1-2 scoops of whey or casein, and then 1 serving of cereal. Oftentimes, this comes out to about 500 calories, depending on how much whey you put in there, and you get roughly about 60 grams of protein. So it's a great way to start your day or a little snack in between. There are a few things I look for when I'm going to select a protein source or a high protein meal throughout the day or throughout the week. It needs to be preppable, so I need to be able to make a lot of it, so I don't have to spend countless hours washing dishes, cooking, etc. On one day, I make 5 days worth of food, and that's really, really beneficial, and it helps you stick to your macros. The second thing is that it needs to be repeatable, meaning I don't want to get tired of it very, very quickly. I want to be able to eat it time and time again. So picking some of your favorite options for this. A go-to option for me would be lean beef, vegetables, and rice specifically. It needs to be macro friendly. What we mean by this is oftentimes having a large degree of protein and a large degree of food volume for not as many calories and not as many fats and carbohydrates. So really fatty cuts of beef specifically might have a ton of calories because there's still a lot of that residual fat left over in the cut. Versus if you get leaner beefs, oftentimes it's going to be a lot less calories. You're going to get a lot more protein, feel a lot fuller, a lot longer. And the most important conversation to have about selecting your protein and prepping your meals is it needs to be sustainable. You need to find a method that works for you that you could consider doing for a year. I'm not saying you need to be able to diet for a year, but you need something that's sustainable for a year, because what you don't want is as soon as things get hard, you fall off the bandwagon and never return back. Another big part of that conversation is going to be life skills and behavior. A really good example that I heard on a podcast just today is a doctor specifically had a client that he was trying to lose weight, and he was eating McDonald's after work every single day, regardless of the conversations they had. He just couldn't seem to stop himself. So this doctor specifically mapped out a separate route for him to take home that doesn't go by McDonald's. And he managed to go 6 months without McDonald's, and he lost something like 60 pounds. So finding things in your life that you can alter like this, that don't put temptations in front of you, oftentimes can make meal prepping and getting high protein foods in your diet consistently a lot easier. So just not buying the Oreos, but also do buy the chicken, as an example. And when it comes to implementing protein in your diet and kind of sticking to your macros, keep it simple. Don't focus so much on the minutia if you're not getting energy balance covered. Once you have energy balance covered and that lifestyle is kind of adopting that, then you can consider talking about protein. Once you've got that down, completed it for weeks, then you could start thinking about micronutrients and implementing something like what I call Eat the Rainbow. You should have a lot of different colors of food in your diet throughout the day. One final benefit of protein and eating like this is if you're taking in protein, varied colored foods, and high fiber diets, oftentimes it ends up being very satiating, and it makes it a little bit easier to stick to a calorie deficit if you are in a calorie deficit. Protein is equally important if you're bulking and trying to gain muscle, as well as if you're cutting and trying to lose body fat, because it's going to help maintain that muscle mass that you do have. So a high protein diet, if you're athletic or have any muscle related goals, should be something that sticks around with you for a very long time, if not the rest of your life. Hopefully that helps, and stay jacked.